Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman, and today I'm joined by Hunter Jones.
Hey.
And Additya Kandalkar.
Hello.
And today we're going to be doing Harry Potter. We're going to be doing characters, obviously not all of them, because unfortunately in 1 hour we're not going to be able to give the amount of credit that all the characters deserve, because there's just so many that we're going to miss, and I apologize in advance for that. Before we start, let's do a quick, I don't know about icebreaker, but which house are each of you in?
I'm Gryffindor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Gryffindor for sure.
Yeah.
Have you tested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you test?
I have. I'm a Ravenclaw. I got Gryffindor originally when I was like 13, but then I retested for a Ravenclaw, which, for better or for worse, probably.
Is that what you wanted, was Ravenclaw?
I mean, I did want to be Gryffindor, but probably I am a Ravenclaw, which I shouldn't feel bad about.
No, they're good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all good. Hufflepuff gets
they all got their things.
Bad rap, but... Yeah. So, I guess first we'll talk about the obvious one, Harry himself. Any initial thoughts?
I mean, I feel like there could just be a whole podcast just on Harry Potter.
Yeah. I guess there could be like 7 movies on Harry Potter. Oh wait, there are.
Yeah.
Right. It's
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was maybe not the best question to open with.
Harry, he's like the main protagonist. What should we say about him? Like, all of his journey, it's mostly circles around him. He's the main character. He has this external environment that's affecting him, all the antagonists, his friends and all. But mainly, the thing I like the most is that the internal conflict that he has, right? He needs to understand what happened to his parents, and is he similar to Voldemort or not? That's like the main conflict that he always has, right?
Yeah, so what, and you kind of gave some of an answer to this, is like what sets this series apart from all others? Because after this came out, there were a ton of imitators of this series. Like, everyone was trying to be the next Harry Potter. And there were some good attempts, but I don't think any of them have come close to being like the institution that this series has created.
Right.
So, and I think what you were talking about there, Diddy, is like getting right to a major thing about it is the character journey that Harry goes on is just so engaging.
Right.
Yeah. It's very in-depth. It's very... I don't know, there's so much it's happening around Harry Potter, and as he develops throughout the story too. And I think it also has to do with the author. I think J.K. Rowling really is like a creative genius, and she created Harry to be this super complex character.
Absolutely.
And
yeah. So the thing that I've kind of decided, at least from what I can tell, is like the major thing that sets him apart is that he's active. From the first book, he's like getting himself involved in stuff, and there's kind of the whole thing about like he's the chosen one. He's the boy who lived. He's got like the whole prophecy around him, but I never get the sense that he's like on rails with that, which seems to happen a lot with other protagonists. Even though like he's kind of destined to like either like lose to Voldemort and everything goes to hell basically, or he defeats him and like, not that everything gets better, but it's all kind of riding on him. But that never seems to like really weigh in on what he does.
Right. Yeah, I like the way you put that, and it's crazy that he was destined for this thing, but he didn't even like find out who he was until he was 12. And so, and his living circumstances too were like obviously, I mean, not good at all. And so he still grew up until that point. It's like kind of he had a sense of who he was, but obviously he didn't find out for sure until he was 12. But I don't know. It's like he accepted all of those things.
I guess
he was like prepared for it almost.
Yeah.
I guess what I feel is that he never wanted to become what he was destined for. Like, he always was like, no, that's not what I want to do, right? But even though he was destined for it, so he was always doing something else. But every time he was just pushed back into the life that he was destined for, and he just went for it. Like, he prepared for it, and he always had this different levels, each after each. He had big moments, which just inevitably led to the final
So, do you think, like, I mean, obviously there's a number of things outside of his control. Do you think it's necessarily inevitable, though? Because a lot of it, I don't know if it's, like, destined to happen, but it's definitely not because of anything he does, but a lot of it is. So, like, I guess what I'm asking is, like, do we think what could be, like, another outcome for this?
I don't think so, because that's the only thing, that Harry never actually wanted the outcome to happen, but it did. Like, so
which outcome do you mean?
The outcome, I mean, that he inevitably has to fight Lord Voldemort, right? That's always about to happen, and that's what he always tried to do, is to stay away from that life that he was destined for, and that he's the chosen one, or whatever, that he has to defeat Lord Voldemort, and he always stayed away from it in his own way, but he was always pushed back into that life, and he had to go through all of it, and in the end he had to face Lord Voldemort, even if he didn't want it to happen.
I feel like he kind of did, but also at the same time, I feel like maybe in the back of his mind he always knew, like he always knew that all of these things, like he was going to be the one that had to face all of these things, like in the future.
Do you think there's, like, another version of the character, though, that, like, would run away from this? Because that's something that he never really considers. Like, he never once is like, I didn't sign up for this. I mean, he does think of, like, I didn't ask for this, but he never turns that into, like, I shouldn't have to fight Voldemort, so I'm not going to.
Right.
He never puts that responsibility on anyone else, really.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting because, it's like I was saying, I think he always kind of knew, but he definitely could have. He could have turned away. There's many different times he could have just walked away from it, you know.
But then again, I guess I feel like if he even consider the option of, like, an alternate timeline where he runs away from all of this, there's always this chance of all his life and all his past catching up to him.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Voldemort is going to let him go, even if he runs away from it. He's going to always be behind him. And there's going to be a point of time that he has to take a stand. That's what I feel.
And I think it also has to do with, like, him finding out who he is as he gets older. When he finally enters into this world, like, he learns who he is, he learns who his parents are, and I think that there's, like, maybe, like, he's doing it for them type of thing.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. I think that's probably a huge part of it. Like, he learns, you know, this awesome world that he, you know, kind of gets thrown into without knowing anything, but then he's learning things about his family and things like that he didn't even know, and so he's learning how good they are, and so I think that's part of why he wants to do good and be a good person and face him in the end.
So it's kind of like the way he's introduced to the wizarding world does kind of play a big part in that, because, like, at the beginning of the first book, he hates his circumstances.
Right.
I mean, the way he's introduced to the wizarding world, it's not immediately like everything he's ever dreamed of, but it's definitely a positive experience for him. Like, the day Hagrid takes him to Diagon Alley, I think it says in the book, is the best day of his life up to that point. Mm-hmm. And it's a little overwhelming, but it's definitely positive. So, like, if that had been different, because, like, there's some series where the character's introduction to the world is, like, really tragic. Like, it'll start with someone dying, or they're just, like, forced into it, which Harry's a little bit forced into it, but not, like, he's not, like, snatched away.
Right.
Exactly.
That's true. And also, you cannot take away his heritage. I mean, if there was any other kid, maybe there's a chance he could just step off. But it was Harry Potter. I mean, his parents and him, like, they're the most famous people in the magic world, right? There is just no way that he could, like, run away from it. His own identity, I feel.
Yeah, that's probably true. So, my younger sister Amanda, who I just read all the books to for, like, the past year and a half or so, which is kind of why we're doing this episode in the first place. One of the things that she said was, like, a major takeaway from the book based on Harry's actions is, like, I think her exact words are, you should walk toward things that revolve around you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, like,
it is.
It really is, yeah. And I think it's such a great lens to view Harry's actions through too, because, like, so in the first couple of books, like, one of his defining qualities is that he gets himself into situations and really has no regard for the rules. And in the first couple books, like he pretty much gets rewarded for that. He definitely gets punished too. But for the most part, like he's encouraged to, follow his own conscience and not necessarily play by the rules that everyone is setting out for him. I think the times that if we're gonna like pass judgment on him, the times when he does get himself involved in things that revolve around him, whether that's like something that's directly impacting the school, like in the basilisk attacking, or like the stone being stolen, like those are major things that even if they aren't necessarily directly about him, they're about Hogwarts and therefore about him. Yeah. And then like also in like the couple of later books, like there's definitely a lot more that's about just him. But there's also some situations where he's involving himself in things that really he has no business doing.
Right.
That's right.
Interpreting, walking toward things that revolve around him.
Yeah.
That's like exactly what I think. When he does that, he's doing good. When he doesn't,
that's kind of like an amazing takeaway to like. I don't know how old your sister is.
She's 9.
9.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And she got that from
yeah, I know.
That's kind of amazing though, because like I remember when the books like first came out, and I'm a grade younger, just like a grade younger than Harry Potter. So like. I kind of grew up with them, and they've always been.
Oh, you mean like the actors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and the story too, like they've.
I think he's born 1980 though.
No. I mean, he meant like the age that they are in.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have stepped on you.
Yeah. Right. Character age. Yeah. So they've always been like, but I remember when the books first came out, nobody really knew what it was, and like. I just remember reading it, and I didn't get that like life lesson, but like it is such a good story when you think about it for children. There's so many good like lessons to be learned in the Harry Potter books, at least the first one too. Like
I think it's also in connection to him as a character and his past, the things that he does for the school as well, because it's kind of a name that he has to live up to, and also with that name comes all these qualities that he has from his parents and from all his friends and families that he's connected to, the bravery and the magic and the genius of that character. That's why he makes his mission, even though if it's a Hogwarts thing, he thinks that it is something that he has to overcome and he has to face it.
So I want to put this next one to you, Additya, because you've read the first 2 books, but not the other ones, and seen all the movies. In the later movies, there's like a lot of differences. Not differences, but there's a lot that gets taken out from the books that they don't have time to get to in the movies.
I'd say that's true for all of them.
But more so for the later ones, I think. But I guess in either case, like, do you feel like Harry is kind of, I guess, a bit more like defined by his identity as like the boy who lived, just because like in the movies I feel like they have to narrow it down so much that it does feel like he's a little bit on rails. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth there, but like, do you get that sense from like having experienced it mostly through the movies?
So yeah, I mean, even in the movies, like it's a bit similar to the books. The few big movies that were like the first 2 or 3 one, like Chamber of Secrets, Prisoner of Azkaban, and I think it was more about everything else, and Harry was a factor in it. Like, of course, he was the main protagonist, but I think there was more going on also around him. And then later it changed to it just being more about him, right? Then because Voldemort was introduced properly in Goblet of Fire, and then it just led on about after that thing being about him and Voldemort and the Horcruxes, right? So I guess I do feel that way. That was.
But you're saying mostly kind of after book 4, it kind of turns.
Not the book, the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
After the 4th movie.
Yeah.
So prior to that point, do you feel like he still is? I mean, I guess Goblet of Fire is a little bit of a tough example because he really is like he's forced into the tournament there.
That's true.
So it's not so much about Voldemort there, but he is.
No, yeah, correct. You're right. I just meant that because Voldemort is introduced in the 4th film, from there on, the later film, it's more about them rather than being about Hogwarts or his friends or his family. It's just that them and fighting each other and destined to be, fight each other. That's all. It gets more into that.
Yeah. The last point I wanted to bring up with Harry, and this was something that I was just kind of thinking of as I was getting ready for last night, was like, I think there's a lot to be said for like the way that we don't get a lot of major like Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw characters in this book. And initially I kind of took that as like, that's kind of J.K. Rowling's fault. And it was like the one major thing that I don't really like about these books is how few of those characters we get. But then I kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, maybe this isn't J.K. Rowling's fault. Maybe it's more Harry's fault, because her responsibility as the author, I feel like, is kind of giving us his story. Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't have like major characters from Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw in his life, I think that says more about him, because he's like not paying attention to them. From what I can tell, looking at like the way that people come into his life, like the best way to get on Harry's radar is to like, basically like Malfoy is the epitome of that. Like someone who just gets on his nerves and is just there to piss him off and like is just being aggravating either to him or his friends. So it's mostly like, if you want Harry to notice you, get on his bad side. There's no like other characters that really come up where he kind of admires them, I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like that says a lot about him.
Yeah.
So
I don't really see Harry as like a very closed off person though. Like I think he had obviously his close friends because he was a Gryffindor and that's who he became friends with first. And I think we see him become friends with more like people outside of his house like the older he gets. What I got from the books is he's a very open person and he'll be friends with almost anybody, unless you're mean to him or...
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt a little bit. I thought he was like kind of not very closed off. I thought he was just... He's usually nice to pretty much everyone.
Okay, well, I guess that's fair.
I guess being nice and like being friends with someone is different, but...
Yeah, I think you're right about that in the sense of like I think that shows up most in like 3, 4, and 5 maybe,
right?
Where there's like a few people who come in who he like kind of has neutral relationships with.
Right.
The thing I was kind of thinking of it was in book 2, like the couple of characters who come like was it Justin Finch Fletchley. Like you look at what it took to get him on Harry's radar is like he basically is like a murder victim. Like, right. He doesn't actually die. But essentially, that's how much it took to get him on Harry's radar. So maybe I'm being a little bit unfair to him.
Yeah, but no, I really like the perspective that it's more Harry's fault than J.K. Rowling's. I get that. Yeah, maybe it's just the case that because he was in Gryffindor, he would eventually hang out with people who are from Gryffindor, right? It's just, I don't think it's like his intention to be not friends with anybody outside Gryffindor, but it's just that he hangs out with those people more. So maybe that's why, coincidentally, those are his friends.
And he's a celebrity, and so it's like everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
And so he's probably closed off to being like friends with, every single person, but like he has his close group, and I think he's nice to everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I guess even like Colin Creevey is kind of like the one example of someone who like he doesn't really try to exploit Harry, but he views him as like Harry Potter the thing rather than Harry Potter the person.
Right.
And even then, Harry's like really pretty diplomatic in dealing with him.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'd say so.
And even I think Harry is on really, really close terms with Luna, and Luna is from she's not a Gryffindorian, she's in Ravenclaw, right?
Yeah.
So maybe then he is open to different houses and people. Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I am being a little bit hard on him. I guess a pretty good transition with this is because the next character we're going to look at is Ron. So the thing that I think is the biggest attribute for Ron is that like he's kind of defined by like his insecurity, but one thing he never does is use Harry to like gain prestige with anyone else, which major props to him for doing that. He gets to Hogwarts and he has all this to live up to from like all 5 of his brothers that have come before him, and now he's living in the shadow of like the most famous wizard of his like the past century, basically, or one of the top 5 most famous wizards of the past century, and he never once lords it over anyone that like he's friends with them or tries to like use that to his advantage.
Right. Yeah, I really like that, and I think partly it has to do with them. They met so young. Like it wasn't like, I mean, he obviously knew who Harry was. Again, I think that I kind of like got to give it to Harry for being so like open and friendly when Harry could have been like, oh, like I don't know who you are type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ron is more like, I like what you said, like he doesn't use Harry's fame at all. Like I think he's a little bit more protective over the friendship versus
And the thing is too, it does get in the way, kind of.
Yeah.
Like he's jealous of Harry in a lot of cases that
Right.
like Harry doesn't even have to try to be noticed, and Ron like does everything he can and can't seem to get like any kind of notoriety for anything.
That's it, because when when they're about to destroy the Horcrux, what Ron sees is like Harry being the famous one and him being with Hermione. So there is a big jealousy kind of that was there at that point of time. And also I love the fact that before we mentioned that other people, the character you said, looked at Harry as Harry the brand rather than Harry the person.
Yeah.
Ron is like on the opposite spectrum. He sees Harry more as a friend and as a person, how he is, other than the brand of the wizard that he is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I think it's kind of nuts that he's able to do that, because like Ron is like, he defines himself as kind of being a nobody. So I don't think he can like really empathize with what Harry's going through and like all of this stuff that happens around him, and like just like the fact of being Harry Potter, he has no idea what that feels like.
Yeah.
And yet he's like really sympathetic to it.
Yeah.
In like his own way.
Yeah.
I guess there are like two perspectives going on. And if that's the case, if you are living in a shadow of a completely big celebrity, this first one is what Ron does, which I love and admire. And then there's a second case, like how in Spider-Man there's Ned who tells Peter always that bring Spider-Man to the party or introduce me as a friend of Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Right? So that's what I mean. Comparison to that, I mean nothing on that character, but I just love how Ron treats Harry as more than a friend rather than anything else.
Yeah, I like that. Do you think it has anything to do with Ron's, like the way he grew up?
Yeah.
I mean, his family basically were like really, really poor. And then he also had all of his older siblings go. And so I feel like he kind of had a lot to live up to. But I think like that's why him and Harry becoming friends is almost like perfect timing, because I think he was like, Harry is my age, like we're like, now I'm friends with him, like I'm just happy to be here type of thing, versus like being jealous of Harry's status.
Yeah, maybe. I think that maybe is the one part of the books that I really would want to get Ron's perspective, because I don't think we need to like know what, I think he wears his emotions on his sleeve enough for most of the books that we don't really need to get in his head for any of them, except maybe that meeting scene. I would really want to know what's going on in his head then.
Yeah, that's true.
I think maybe the reason though that he doesn't actually ever use Harry, this is just kind of speculation, but like maybe if he did use Harry to like gain prestige or whatever, maybe that would be like the ultimate defeat for him.
I think so, yeah.
Because like what he sees in the Mirror of Erised is like him accomplishing things himself.
Yeah.
So if he defines himself as just like the friend of a greater person, maybe that's like the ultimate surrender for him.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I'm trying to think of like, are there any instances where, I think it was in the fourth book maybe, when they're going to the ball and Harry and Ron both don't have dates yet, and I feel like he kind of uses almost Harry's status for the both of them. Like if he does use Harry at all, it's usually to benefit the both of them, not just
kind of. I guess so. Because he does kind of say, he's like, you're not going to have any problem getting anyone to go with you. Like you're freaking Harry Potter.
So like I feel like he uses it in that way, but like he would never do anything to like
for himself.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. Do we have anything else we want to say about him before we move on?
He's one of my favorites, though.
He is.
Definitely, yeah.
And also, Ron could always end any argument with Harry. If Harry ever says that I am Harry Potter, he would just say I have both my parents. Yeah.
Thankfully, he never does that.
Yeah.
Or wait, maybe he does.
Might be. There might be one scene. I guess.
I think there is in the 7th that big argument. I think it does come up then. Yeah. Next character is Hermione, who probably a better sidekick than Ron in a lot of cases, although I don't think she usually is thought of as a sidekick.
More efficient.
Yeah.
She's a lot more useful than
she is. Definitely.
Yeah, she's like, I think if Harry wasn't Harry, we would be getting the Hermione Granger story because she has the most agency out of anyone.
Oh yeah. Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what do we think is, and I don't really have an answer to this, but I think her character, like obviously this series is imitated, but her character is imitated in a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of trios where it's like the hero, the dumb sidekick, and then like the smart girl. Somehow none of those other characters have become so iconic the way that Hermione is. Mm-hmm. So like, I think the obvious answer is that she's just a much better crafted character than any of them. But like, why do we think she is like such an icon and a role model, whereas like Annabeth Chase from Percy Jackson is just kind of like nowhere near as like admired by fans?
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors factoring in. What I feel is one of the biggest contributing factors is that because as spectators, we always want to connect to that magical world, right? And Hermione, in some or the other ways, are way in because she is a muggle at the same time, like partly because her parents are from that.
Yeah.
And then she's a wizard and she kicks everybody's ass being from that background. Being from a place where there is nothing magical to coming to a place and being the topmost in all her fields, I guess maybe one of the reasons, you know?
Yeah, because she's kind of she's like totally self-made.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be it, actually. Because I don't know that that's true of any other, like, Hermione imitations.
Right.
I think that's kind of why she's known as, like, the cliche, like, smart girl, is because she had a lot to prove. Like, she felt like she had a lot to prove. And I thought you were going to say self-conscious for a second there, because, like, I think she does feel a little self-conscious about her parents being muggles. I think that's why she, like, is so smart and is, like, such a... adamant about being like the best and smartest and getting everything right, is because she wanted to prove herself.
I never really thought of it that way. I always kind of figured that like she was exactly the same way as she is or not exactly the same, but like when she was a muggle and going to school, she was like, she took the exact same approach. That's how I've always imagined it. But I think you're right that like she probably does feel like she has a lot of ground to cover, that everyone else is like a few steps ahead of her.
Right.
In that. Clearly, like, that doesn't end up being the case.
Right.
But, yeah, I can see how that might be a motivation.
And I mean, because J.K. Rowling, I think she kind of refers to, she kind of wrote Hermione after herself.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting because I've heard J.K. Rowling talk in interviews before about Hermione and how she wished she would have been involved in the casting process so that they didn't cast somebody so like good looking, such as Emma Watson, because
I mean Emma Watson at least is a really good actress, like from the start though.
Right. But she didn't see that as herself. She didn't see herself as like the pretty girl, and I think it's hard to see that like in the films because Emma Watson is very pretty, and so but I think that had a lot to do with it too, is she didn't think of herself as being pretty or anything like that, so she was very more adamant about being smart than anything else.
I would still say you should cast Emma Watson as Hermione just because I think she played her
100%.
really well, which I don't think you can say of, not to trash on Daniel Radcliffe, but I don't. Rupert Grint was born to play Ron and only Ron.
Right.
Harry or Daniel Radcliffe, we deserve someone a little better to play Harry. I'm sorry, but we do.
And also, like Emma Watson being so beautiful, absolutely no doubt about that. She still did a pretty good job in not making that come out of the character more. Like it was always that Hermione being the nerdy girl or the scholar in the room rather than
the most competent one of the three of them.
That and also 100% absolutely right was that she had a lot of things to prove because she was an outsider in her own eyes, right? Not Harry, not either of her best friends. They were always into that world. They were born into it, but not her. She felt differently than them because she was an outsider, and then she had a lot of proof to all the others.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see that. Like, I mean, there's a few things that Ron knows just intrinsically from having grown up in the wizarding world that neither of them do, but for the most part, Hermione is the most knowledgeable about the wizarding world, and on paper, she shouldn't be. On paper, she should have the least.
Yeah, but and that's interesting though, is because like they never would have come close to anything,
doing anything that they do
if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, I mean, if it was just Ron and Harry, oh my god,
that's why she's so much more than just a sidekick.
Yeah,
you know, because like they couldn't have gotten through any.
Yeah, so I think this makes it a good time to bring up possibly the most important scene in the series for her, which is when she fights the troll. I kind of think that's like the biggest change we see her go through is in that scene.
Yeah.
It's easy to think of her as someone who does like to follow the rules and just kind of be a good student and that kind of thing. But she goes after the troll before she becomes Harry and Ron and has like that troublemaking influence in her life. She does that just to do it, like to prove, like I guess that goes back to what you were saying, like to prove that she can. What do we make of that? That she like has the agency to go after the troll when like one, she's way unprepared to do that, and two, when like she's still kind of in like the pre-Hogwarts version of herself rather than like the one that we see for most of the books.
Right. Yeah.
I always love all the scenes where Hermione breaks the rules because it's always funny and it just like surprises Ron and Harry every goddamn time. Also in the scene where they make the Polyjuice potion and she turns into a cat in the film, and many other scenes, and that's about it. So she's so curious that if she wants to pursue a thing, she doesn't care about the rules at that time. Yeah. And she goes off more crazier than Harry and Ron, you know?
Yeah. I guess that's kind of true, because they're just kind of like, all right, let's do it. She's like, no, let's do it right. But like, then like breaking into Snape's storehouse or whatever you call it, to like get all the ingredients for that. Like they would never do that.
Yeah.
And probably if they tried to, they would screw it up.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, if we're going to break the rules, we're really going to break the rules.
Completely.
Do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think with her, it's always like for the right reasons, which is not necessarily true of Harry. Like there has to be a reason for her to do it, whereas Harry's just kind of like, screw it. I want to know. I want to know what's behind that door. Let's go behind that door.
That's true. And I think part of it is to prove herself. I think like she just wants to be seen, and like when it comes back to the troll, I think that's kind of why she did it. You know, she was feeling very, I don't know, unaccepted, I guess, and I think that's kind of a big reason why she went after the troll in the first place.
And maybe that's why Harry and Ron become friends with her, is because they see that she has that same spirit as they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have anything else we want to say about her before we move on?
Man, I don't know. She's such a complex character. I feel like we can do another episode on just Hermione too. Yeah,
or you could write a book series from her perspective.
Like a spin-off on just Hermione.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, we get the Hermione Granger story, so I don't know that you like necessarily could do that, but like take Harry out and have Hermione be the protagonist. It might not be quite as iconic, but it'd still be pretty iconic.
It would be.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next character is Neville, who probably I think one of my top 3.
Really?
I think so. Yeah. I love his arc through the whole thing. So you wanted to talk about
100%.
So. Yeah, I'll let you start with.
Well, I think that's exactly why. That's exactly why I love his character so much. I think he's kind of like, added this comedic element to the books and to the movies. Yeah, he's kind of like the unsung hero that goes unrecognized. Most of the time, because he's kind of like this clumsy kid, and is not very good at school, but yet he has all the other attributes that a good person has. Like he's very courageous and he's brave and he stands up to his friends and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, he's basically Harry just without the Potter last name.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Otherwise, he would be such a famous and such a more beloved character, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a decent amount of people who do like him though. I mean, look, 2 out of 3 of us cite him as one of our favorites. So that
I love him. It's like even for me, Neville is a top 3. I'm just saying that people would think about Harry and Ron and Hermione always first rather than Neville. It's just that he has the same attributes as him, just because he's not born into the Potter family. That's the only reason people overlook him.
Yeah, like if Harry were a Dursley, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that might be Neville. Like if he didn't find it, maybe.
Yeah.
I think Neville might be the truest epitome of a Gryffindor out of anyone. Because beginning of book 1, he's afraid of literally everything. Like literally everything.
Yeah.
So that means like doing anything takes a lot of courage for him.
Yeah.
And by the end of book 7, he's afraid of nothing.
Right.
And like is just owning it.
Yeah. And I think that I like that because for me, Neville was really relatable as a character. He had a lot of childhood trauma with his parents being killed the way they did, or the way they were killed.
Yeah.
And like, you know, he lived with his grandma, so he's kind of odd in that way. But like, yeah, I like how he really is the true Gryffindor.
Yeah, I love his character a lot because even though of all his difficulties, he just still, always stood up. And also, that's about it, I think, because I haven't read the later books where Neville's character actually grows a lot in character arc.
Right.
That's why I'm feeling that way, because in movies, they don't focus on him that at all, I guess,
Yeah,
maybe
and
that's why.
to be honest, like not to spoil anything for you, but we don't get a lot more from him in the books than we do in the movies. Like, there's a few things about him that you haven't seen, but honestly, it's not much. He really doesn't get as much attention as he deserves. Like, I think he's the character I want to see. I would read a series, maybe not as long of a series, but I would read books from Neville's perspective, because I think there's so much internal conflict that we don't get from him.
Yeah.
From what we see in the books.
Yeah. And I think that's why I love his character development so much, just because it is so much development. Like, he goes through a lot and he comes so far, like a lot farther than a lot of characters we see.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of like this anxious, scared little kid, and like towards the end he's like confident.
Yeah.
He's like very much like
yeah, he's a total boss.
Yeah. And he knows it. Like, that's what's funny.
Yeah.
Like, he knows. So I think, it's such a huge development.
He is so important that he's the one who kills the last Horcrux.
That might be my favorite moment in the entire series, is when he kills Nagini. Spoiler alert, very belatedly too. I'm sorry, I should have said that we're going to spoil
I don't
the
think
whole
it's a spoiler
series.
at all. If you haven't seen that scene till now, you're living under a rock. You should get out of it.
Really
Yeah. If you're like under the age of 10, I think. Yeah. And side note, can we please get like a spin-off series for Neville instead of more Fantastic Beasts movies?
Oh, yeah,
or like
please.
for Snape? Can we please get a
do.
Snape spin-off instead?
I would love.
I would watch 8 movies about Snape.
That would
I'm
be
not
great,
watching
like,
any of
title,
these Fantastic
The
Beasts.
stories of Severus Snape or something. That'd be so cool.
I don't feel like Fantastic. I don't feel like it's Harry Potter. Like, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not. There's not that feel to it. There's just not that feel.
And that's the thing. They have so many characters they could go into. Like, they're kind of... They seem like they're trying to turn it into, like, an origin story for Dumbledore, but, like...
Yeah. I don't think
Sorry, I don't think he's the character to do a spin-off for. Like, you've got so many others. Like,
I think he would make a good one, but I don't think Fantastic Beasts did it right.
I didn't see the second one, which he's in more, but...
I have seen, but I didn't like
worse
it.
than the first one.
I think
that's what I heard.
You've done yourself a favor unintentionally. The first one is still good. Second one...
I wasn't a fan of the first one either.
Yeah, I mean, not at all, but it's not in the Harry Potter feeling,
Yeah, I think a major reason for that is because it's just like world building, and it's just kind of like stuff. Whereas, like, when we get things like that in the real books, like, every creature or concept or, like, spell that comes up, it's kind of, like, significant somehow. It has a purpose, and it has, like, a visceral feeling to it. Like
Right.
Dementors, like when you first learn about Dementors, you're automatic, or like Boggarts or the Mirror of Erised, you're automatically projecting onto them. Like, what would I see in the mirror?
Right.
Or what would the Boggart turn into for me? And what would I turn it into?
Yeah.
It's more about the Harry Potter franchise, about the small scenes and stories building up to a bigger one, and I guess Fantastic Pieces about like a larger story that they're putting into small ones, something like that. Maybe that's
Maybe.
They focus so much on the creatures, which is, ironic because it is Fantastic Beasts. But like,
yeah.
But like I almost felt like I was watching like a Pokemon movie or something.
Yeah.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
That's pretty much the first movie. It's gotta catch them all.
And that's like what it felt like to me, and I was like, I don't know. It was just an interesting take.
I would love a movie just on Snape. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I have heard Kit Harington has said he wants to play Snape.
heard that too.
He doesn't.
Me too. Yeah, I heard that one.
But he doesn't think he should, which I agree. Like, sorry.
I don't think he would do justice to that.
He's just like, he's too likable to be Snape.
Yeah, and there's
That's such a shift from Jon Snow too. Like, now that Alan Rickman's dead, I don't know who you'd have playing, because Alan Rickman was born to play Snape.
He was. But even if there was a
One of his
spin-off, I don't think
special.
Alan Rickman would be casted into it. Maybe because I feel that it would be what happened before, like how did he become what he was in Harry Potter films before all that. That's why I don't think Alan Rickman would be in it anyways. But even though I would love to see more of Alan Rickman,
Yeah. You know who could maybe play him is Ezra Miller, I think, who's in Fantastic Beasts. Like, I think he could be Snape.
I think
Like
he could
the
too,
like the
I could see
angsty younger Snape.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I really like that casting choice actually.
He may not be like he couldn't be menacing Snape, at least
Right.
not from what I've seen him in.
Right.
But he could be like
Yeah, that's really interesting.
getting bullied by James Snape.
that's
And
actually good
Totally.
choice.
yeah, so I guess now we can talk about him. He was going to be next anyway. Yeah, so Snape, I would say, is definitely another one of my top favorites. He is like probably the most complex character in the series, I think.
Snape is my absolute. He's like my number one like favorite character throughout Harry Potter. Oh my god, his character is so complex and so rich, and yet so misunderstood, because him being the good guy, but because of everything he can't really say that, and you can't really know until the very end that what he's doing is for the greater good.
Yeah, because he has to play for both teams
Exactly.
so much. He has to be so committed to them that I think neither Voldemort nor Dumbledore can. I think they both claim to fully trust him, but I don't see how either of them can. I think he has to be so involved in both sides that he kind of does want both to win. We don't have like any real evidence to say, like, at the end it does seem like, yeah, he really is on the side of good.
Yeah.
But there's so much ambiguity there up to that point.
Yeah.
And when he kills Dumbledore in book 6, I was like, oh yeah, he's bad. Like, how could he not be bad after doing that?
Right. I kind of see Snape as like, he's almost, I don't know, he's kind of like the Neville that didn't progress like Neville did. He kind of started off as like, and we don't learn this till later on, but like, in his younger life, like he was kind of this oddball kid that got made fun of, and then he grew up, and I think that's just part of his childhood trauma that he's never expressed, and that's why he's such a closed off character, is for that reason.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, because he could be like, he really could be a good like mentor and father figure to Harry in like another version of his character, especially because like, so he sees like all of James in Harry, but then again, like, there really isn't that much of James in Harry, right? I mean, not that we know very much about James, but like, I don't feel like there is. Like, people are always telling him that he's a lot like his dad, but I think it's always from people who don't really know him that well.
That's true.
I think you're right.
Also, like, the thing is that, of course, he plays for both the sides, but in his own back of the head, it's more that what he believes in is what he's doing. He believes, like, if he believes that that's what his definition of good or evil is, he does that, and he always wants to do the right thing that he thinks is right. What he believes in will do good for somebody else, even if he has to use the wrong team or the evil people to do it.
Yeah.
that's something I kind of wish they put in the films a little bit more. Was that process, like him going through that, and like more of his personal life? Because I know we see in the films that like flashback of when James is like, I can't remember what he's doing.
Yeah, he like hangs him upside down and pantsers him or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that.
And I feel like, and you do get more of that in the books. It kind of goes into it a little bit more, but I wish they would have, portrayed that better in the films.
He really protected Harry more than Dumbledore, I feel.
Yeah.
And he never got credited, like never ever got credited for that. Like he should have got more credits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing with him too, I think, is that like there's a lot of good and a lot of bad to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he exactly gets what he deserves, but like there is good and bad that is given to him. Like he suffers the consequences for his bad actions, but he gets a lot of mercy from Dumbledore too. So like I don't know if it's exactly like justice, but there's something there.
Yeah. I think that's all part of the genius of J.K. Rowling, though, too. It's like, I mean, we don't see till the end like how good he is, but we get like all the little hints, like the Patronus that comes to Harry. Like, I thought that was amazing how J.K. Rowling did that. Like, just like his ability.
I love the most amazing part of it is that if you see all the movies backwards from the beginning, you always see the pattern where it's Snape helping Harry, but it's misunderstood. Right from the start of the first movie, where Harry's broom is in the air going haywire, and everybody thinks it's Snape, but it's actually the professor. But Snape is like countering that spell of his.
Right.
And every other film, it's like Snape helping him out, but everybody thinks it's actually Snape who's doing it.
Right.
And then he launches the Patronus just to help Harry, which I really, really loved.
And like Harry never comes around on Snape either. Like, regardless of how much good he sees Snape do and how much Dumbledore tells him, like I trust Snape, he never comes around on that. He's always suspicious of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Granted, there's a lot of personal rivalry in there, but like I think Hermione takes kind of the right approach with it, where she's like, look, he may be kind of a jerk, but he's not really. That doesn't mean he's an evil person.
That's true. Yeah.
I love that he's in this. Like, I don't know how many other fictional worlds he could fit into. I think he'd fit right in Game of Thrones, but that might be the only one. Yeah, he'd fit right in. Like, I want him on the small council.
Yeah, him and Tyrion together. Oh my god.
Oh, him and Tyrion would be so good together. I would pay so much to see that.
Yeah.
That's why
I should write like a fanfic of that or something. That is such a duo.
Although I did like the part that in the end, I mean, it was supposed to be more towards the beginning or before, but before Snape's death, I mean, but still Harry did get in the last, like when he sees Snape's memories of what he actually did and understood why Snape did what he did and he helped him out, and then gives Snape's name to his kid. I guess that is kind of that is like the only hint we get that he does actually kind of understand him. Because in the moment after the revelation, there's so much more like personal stakes for him there that he doesn't really have time to think about like Snape in that moment. But I guess naming his kid after him, that really does. Yeah, he's such a good character. Okay, so the next one we have is Hagrid. So Additya, you wanted to talk about him. I didn't end up doing a lot of preparation on him, but like, why is he one of your favorites? Well, I guess he's just, the most closest person to Harry from the beginning, right? That's the reason I like him so much, that he's the one who delivered Harry as a baby and then gets back to him to take him back to Hogwarts. Like, he is in his own way his closest family member, because he doesn't have his parents, and until Sirius shows up, it's all that Harry always has, and Harry is always on the lookout if something happens to Hagrid, and even it's his most bad or saddest day, Harry will always go to Hagrid first to talk about it, as in like he is his closest uncle,
I think uncle is kind of the right term for it.
He's the first character Harry meets in this world.
Yeah.
Like, he's the one that introduces Harry to all of it. So I think that's always going to be why they're so close.
Yeah, I think he's the right character to introduce him to everything too, because like he's definitely not like a perfect person, but he is undeniably good. He definitely wants what's best for Harry, but he's not going to sugarcoat it for him either. Like he introduces Harry to like the concept of Voldemort, and is like, he doesn't sugarcoat anything with that. Mm-hmm. Although he does say, like, he doesn't try to traumatize Harry with it, with that, and he's like, he's probably not going to come back. That might be him telling himself more than anything. I think it's him telling himself. Yeah. But like he's gentle about it. He's focusing on like the positives and like really looking out for him. But also like he's giving him real talk too. Like he may not necessarily express the best judgment or like know the whole situation, but he's always honest. Yeah. He's honest to a fault, really. Right.
Yeah, I loved how you said it, like gentle. That's a perfect way to describe Hagrid. Like, yeah, because I remember in the books, and I loved they did such a good job with Hagrid in the film. Mm-hmm. I feel like they portrayed him perfectly. That's exactly how I pictured it when I read the book. Yeah, and because you think of just this big, huge, giant dude, but like he is very gentle, and he's very like, you know, Harry feels so safe with Hagrid, and I love that Dumbledore even mentions it too, that like he's one of the most trusted people in Dumbledore's life. Yeah, like he trusts Hagrid the most.
Yeah, very loyal, and he's like Harry's uncle and grandma packed into one.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it is. There is kind of a grandma. Yeah, because I mean, what does he do? He goes over to his house for like cake and tea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's just he feels home.
And he's got weird pets that he always tries to show off. He's like the grandma with the cats.
Yeah. He's like, you know, you should do this, but don't because it's dangerous. It's like kind of hinting him to do stuff and all that. Yeah, helps him out more or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's funny. I like that.
I never thought of it as a grandmother. That is such a good description, though.
Even in Deathly Hallows Part 1 is when they all go to, in the movies, they all go to Harry's place to take him away from it. And they disguise him, or they like use the Polish potion, and him being only with Hagrid instead of anybody else is also kind of a show and tell that how close he is to Hagrid. Like, he feels safe with him, and Hagrid is the one who's his duty to take care of him. So he would not let Harry be with anybody else. And also when Voldemort kills Harry in the forest and he's dead, Hagrid is the one who carries him.
Right. It's a complete mirror image. Exactly. Like which I can't believe it took me such a long time to notice that too. It's like it's like in both cases, like it's like exactly the same thing. Like Voldemort tries to kill Harry and Hagrid. Yeah. Like, especially if Harry really had died there, like, oh yeah, God, what irony that is,
right? Jesus. Yeah, right, yeah, yeah. He has like such paternal instincts over Harry, and you know it's for that reason. Yeah, even like he was the one that dropped him off, and the first one to pick him up, and then the first one, and then when he carried him at the end. You know,
I don't think he's ever like condescending to him though. Like, I think he always meets Harry where he's at. Like, he never wants him to like be like younger and innocent or anything. Right. Like I think he does a little bit in the first books, but like as Harry grows up, like he never tries to stop that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. So I guess it's more and more protective instincts more than paternal, but at the same time, yeah, Harry makes his own choices, and there's not really anything Hagrid can do about it. Yeah. What does it mention? And I know it does mention in the books. What houses?
Sorry, but not to insult him, I don't think he's a Ravenclaw. I don't know. He doesn't seem... Just the way he approaches his class, sorry, but it's not very academic.
That's true.
Yeah.
I want to say he's a Hufflepuff, but I don't know that we actually get that.
I'm definitely sure he's not a Ravenclaw, and he's not a Slytherin.
Yeah, there's no way he's a Slytherin.
So Hufflepuff is the only thing that he might fit into.
I don't know. The first thing he says about Hufflepuff is like a lot of people say Hufflepuff's lame, so like definitely doing some self-deprecation there if that's the case.
I got another crossover for you. So if Tyrion and Snape, it would be Hagrid and Hodor. That would be a great thing about
Hagrid and Hodor.
Yeah, the tales of Hagrid and Hodor.
They basically have that. Like, Grop is almost Hodor.
Yeah.
Like,
so.
I mean, obviously a lot bigger and like more dangerous, but like.
Yeah,
pretty similar. Like, I guess you're right. Like, Hodor could be Hagrid's brother, basically.
Yeah.
So the next character I wanted to do was Ginny, mostly because I don't think she gets enough attention in the books. at all. Definitely not in the movies. I really don't like what they do with her in the movies.
Yeah.
But I think she gets ignored a little bit too much in the books too.
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for her character, like the fact that she agrees to like stay with Harry in the later books. That is such a like underappreciated choice, I think, because beginning of book 2, she's like kind of stricken by him, like, and again more by like you were saying, Harry Potter the brand kind of than Harry Potter the person. But by the end of book 2, like she knows exactly from that point on, she knows what she'd be getting into by getting into a relationship with Harry. Like she has been put in so much danger, not necessarily because of him, but she was a target for Voldemort before like Harry ever cared about her beyond being Ron's sister, and like came pretty close to like dying and was like possessed by him. So like she knows what she's getting into with this and does it anyway.
Yeah.
So like I just don't think she gets enough credit for that.
Yeah, I think you're
right
right
on that. I really don't like the part that she being so talented and so brave, like because she handles Harry later on, more than a friend as well, which I really loved. And I think that they should definitely like, I would love that if they were put more focus on she becomes the captain for Quidditch, the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and that means she's utterly talented in that as well. And we never get to see that part at all.
Yeah, I think that's where she's kind of a little under-recognized because, she does go through a lot, especially that her first year. She gets, she goes through all of that. And I think she was like one of the youngest ones to ever be, possessed by Voldemort. Like she
probably
really goes through all of that, which is great. And it goes a lot more into detail in the books, which I love about, about the journal and how she comes to have that. And I don't know. I think she's very underrated.
Yeah, and we don't get a lot of information, so like about what she's doing in like the middle books, but I think there's like probably kind of an arc that she goes through because like just you kind of look at what little we get from her in the books. We meet her and she's like this wide-eyed like little kid, and then later on she like essentially in book 2 she's just kind of like, I mean, obviously as a plot device, but she's just kind of like stricken by Harry the whole book. And then like a couple books later, she's kind of like, I don't really need him. And then like by the time they actually do get together in the 6th book, like I think she's completed whatever arc she's gone through in those books and is kind of like ready for it. Yeah. Like emotionally. Yeah. And I don't really know what that arc is because we don't get too much with her.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's not necessarily like her loyalty to Harry. I think it's her loyalty to just be on the right team. Like her, she's good, and her whole family is fighting for good. And so, when Harry and those 3 go off finding the Horcruxes, she is like, she's the one that keeps like the DA together. She's the one who like keeps that up and running. And I think it's because she has such loyalty to her house and to her family, and I think that's why we see I think and it's crazy that they don't recognize her for that.
I just wonder like what she goes through in like books, I guess like 3 and 4 would be when it happens, because like by book 5 we kind of see her she kind of owns it, like she's just like she's pretty confident in herself in those books, and like I just wonder what the transition is in like those middle books there, where like what happened, where she like kind of like had whatever arc she went through. Because like we even see like at the beginning of book 5, like Luna says like, Ginny's kind of like the only person who's nice to me. So like, that's right. I wonder like why is she like that?
I think the reason. Well, first of all, the thing is that. The movies also overlook the fact that she's a really, really good wizard. One scene being where they're fighting the Voldemort's army in the 5th part, and she uses that spell which like starts breaking the whole room, destroying the whole room. That's Reducto, I think. And even in the 6th movie where they're at the Weasley's house, and I think Lestrange comes or something, and they both go running into the field, and she just runs after Harry, and then she fights her as well, which was really cool. And coming back to the point where why she does that, like what my take on it would be that in her own way, she always thinks that she should be, a potential girlfriend or on equal levels with Harry, right? And even Ron and Hermione are with him. So to get into that group and to be on the same level as Harry, she needs to be better and better and better, And that's how I guess the character shifts to becoming a better person and a better wizard and all of that.
Yeah, I think she kind of she loves Harry, obviously, and I think I think Harry kind of was a good example to her for those reasons, because she is so brave, and she kind of just runs after it without even thinking.
Right.
I think Harry was an example. I think Harry was a good example for her on that.
I would love to get more on what her whole story is, I guess, because there's just not really enough, I think. Yeah, I'd read a short series about her too. So
yeah, I probably would too.
Yeah, so another spin-off for Warner Brothers to do. The two characters that I guess we're kind of obligated to talk about too are Dumbledore and Voldemort. Dumbledore is, for the most part, he's kind of like that generic sage character, but then I think it's important that we get that glimpse of him in book 7, where we realize he's not necessarily that good of a person. And honestly, I don't know that he's that great of a person in a lot of cases in the earlier books. He really mishandles Harry and Hogwarts.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, because the film doesn't really portray that as much, and I think in the books, I don't know, in the movies we kind of see Dumbledore as this master teacher, all-knowing.
Yeah, he's effectively Gandalf.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but he has his own issues. He has a lot of his own personal problems that he goes through. And
he's just kind of irresponsible in a lot of cases.
Exactly. But I do like that he recognizes it. He usually, has to apologize or do something to kind of make up for,
I guess, what you're coming from, you guys are that's right, that he does mishandle it and all that, but he is well aware that whatever he's doing is mishandling or is wrong, but he still has to do it for the future, for the greater good, I mean, it's not that he's not doing it unintentionally, he is for sure doing it intentionally, but he owns it. He knows that what he's doing wouldn't be as a good principle of the school, but he has to do it anyways.
Yeah.
But sorry, I think he could have saved a lot of things. I think in a lot of ways he's responsible for Cedric's death. I think he's responsible for Sirius's death. And in a lot of ways, because we see pretty early on that he knows what's up at Hogwarts. He knows what's happening in basically all cases. So regardless of what reason he missed Barty Crouch Jr. being disguised as Moody for an entire year, or mishandling Harry for an entire year. Granted, he has other things on his plate then, but he's really mishandling Harry in that case and letting him get into this situation. I think he could have prevented it. Either he ignored it, which I think is probably the worst thing he could have done in that case, or he didn't think to look. Both of those, sorry, that's his responsibility. Yeah. I don't care what else he's having to do as a bigger wizard, particularly in book 4. His responsibility is to protect these students, and he fails to do that in major ways.
Yeah.
That was not a good decision at all, of letting go of Harry in order of Phoenix, just so if Harry is away from him, then he's safe. That was a majorly bad decision, because he knows he's Harry Potter. He'll always be in severe danger, right? So he has to be around him, and that decision of being away from him to protect him I think that was one of his bad ones.
Yeah, but I really like that about Dumbledore. That gives him such a human element to his character, is making bad decisions. Sometimes he making the wrong decision.
Yeah,
and I think if he was just this all powerful Gandalf, it wouldn't have been as good of a story.
That's
I
a
think.
very good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would be very stale really soon then.
Exactly. And we learn a lot of life lessons from Dumbledore, and I think making those mistakes are part of it, like those mistakes that he makes and wrong decisions.
But like even then, I think he's just trying to like check the box with Harry. Look at the way he shows up in the first book. He's like, oh, something traumatic happened. All right, I guess I gotta go talk to him and like say, okay, like Harry's asking all these questions and he's like, oh God, say something clever. Like,
Yeah.
And that'll like tide him over for a year or something.
But I think we do see that change like throughout the books. Like he obviously gets a lot closer and closer to Harry.
But like, look at the way that he handles Harry in the sixth book. Like everything that he should have done in book 5, like he didn't need to necessarily like tell Harry about like the prophecy or anything. He needed to be there for Harry emotionally, and he totally failed to do that. But then in book 6, he's not really doing that either. He's just like he's putting Harry through like a training program to like groom him for being ready for book 7. And like Harry ends up kind of calling him out on that in book 7. He's like, so what the hell was all that? Like you just wanted me to like go do what you couldn't, basically. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think he fails in so many things.
I guess. I mean,
Yeah, but I think he makes up for it.
Yeah, his brother is on your same perspective as well. That's what he always tells Harry, that the person who you trust so much, so blindly, and yet you don't know anything about him. He never told you who he is or what his intentions are or what he believes in, and then yet you just trust him.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and we kind of have like it kind of hints towards his dark past a little bit too. It's like we see that in the film too when they're at the wedding for what's the older brother's name?
Bill Weasley,
yeah.
Bill and Fleur.
Bill and Fleur, yeah, and when Harry sits down and he's talking to, I can't remember her name.
Elphia Stowe. Oh no,
Yeah.
Auntie Muriel.
Yeah, and she's kind of like honestly, do you even know Dumbledore? Like you don't really know anything about him, because he has kind of like this dark past that Harry has no idea.
Yeah, about his sister and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that also comes into play when he's making his decisions and things that he does for Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And his connections with Grindelwald.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people end up feel kind of betrayed by Dumbledore, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, that's the human element at the end.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah. Last character. Unfortunately, I don't think we have time for more, but
Do not say his name.
we're gonna say his name.
Okay.
Yeah, we do kind of have to talk about Voldemort.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of parallels, obviously, that are put between him and Harry. Obviously, they're like very connected to each other.
The wand.
The wand, and like, I mean, spoilers, but like a part of Voldemort literally living inside Harry for his whole life. Here's something that I want to ask. Like, so the prophecy between the two of them, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the line that always is repeated is, one must die at the hands of the other, for neither can live while the other survive. So what do we think live means here? Because like, I just wonder, like, so we obviously know what Harry does after Voldemort dies. What is Voldemort if there's no Harry Potter? Like, what would he do if Harry died in like book 4? I mean, he has like a plan for domination, but we never really see him acting outside of that. Like, he's driven by this like desire to kill him. Like, there's this great meme that I found one time that's like, Voldemort is a teenage girl. He's got a crown, a special cup, a diary, and an unhealthy obsession with a teenage boy.
Yeah.
Like,
That's kind of it's accurate. That's such an accurate way of like, describing it, though, because that's basically how he is. He wanted to be this all-powerful wizard and was stopped by a little baby,
but he stops himself too.
Yeah.
Like, he's obsessed with him killing Harry, and if he wasn't so like bound by that, like, he could have sent someone else to do it. But like, I don't know if it's ego that's making him not do that. I feel like it's something else.
I guess though, because ego is a major part of it, because he is one of the greatest wizards, right? According to him and according to most people, the most evil one, and yet he just can't. He fails at killing this baby, this boy, so many times, over and over. And that kind of always builds up to it, that every time he fails, he has more of a will to go and do it again and finish it this time.
Yeah,
Right.
but like, okay, just look at his situation logically. Like, So Harry effectively has plot armor against Voldemort, but it's like only against Voldemort. Like there is nothing saying so. Like Voldemort buys into this prophecy, but he's kind of the only one who does. Harry is only protected after that night when he kills his parents. Harry is only really protected against Voldemort. Why not send Lucius Malfoy to do it? Like seriously, why not? Lucius would do it. He would love to do that, or like Bellatrix. Or any one of his followers, they could do it, especially earlier on. Like, why was that a thing?
That's the thing, right? So it's even if he kills Harry through Lucius or Lestrange, what the people would say about him after that point of time is that the Dark Lord was unable to kill the boy who lived, right? There will always be something that will stick, always, and he will be the person who was never able to kill that child on his own. So what kind of a Dark Lord is he anyways then?
But like, sorry, like in his case, like, why should he care that much? Like,
I think it's just because of the first time he failed.
Yeah.
Like that was like his first major failure was failing to kill a child.
Yeah.
And I think and it gets fueled more and more throughout the story. I don't think it's like because he fails many times. Like he failed the first time and then he tries again and he fails again, and that just fuels him even more, like his hatreds toward this boy. Like he can't kill this boy, and so it's like I think a lot of it has to do with ego, but
it is
also him just
because even if he
trying
conquers,
to satisfy himself.
Even if he conquers the world, he'll still not be able to digest the fact that he was not able to kill Harry Potter. You know,
I
he
guess.
would be restless.
Yeah, like he was well on his way to becoming the greatest wizard ever,
Yeah.
but a boy stopped him, and so
Yeah.
I think that's what really fueled his hatred towards, Harry.
I guess so, yeah.
And not any wizard, like not Dumbledore, not Snape, not powerful wizards, just a boy who had like literally nothing, you know?
Yeah.
That the fact that a nobody could stop him.
But
It'd be like Ant-Man killing Thanos, I guess.
It's like this child has stopped him many times over.
If he goes inside the butt.
Yeah, I've heard that theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God Endgame didn't end up that way.
Yeah. I think this is why like Voldemort couldn't survive in Game of Thrones, though. Like, sorry, with like this kind of limitations, he's dead within like season 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, or he would just be riding on the same horse as the Night King, just coming here, and Arya Stark might just kill them both in the same night.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. Like the difference between like him and the Night King. The Night King's like, all right, just like climate change, world domination, however we can. Voldemort would be like, no, we have to beat Castle Black first, and the Night King's just like, no, screw that, we'll burn down the wall, and like, who cares?
Yeah.
But like he would just be like intent on like, I don't know. He's kind of like if Stannis and Cersei were one person.
That's true. Yeah, he's just
like
very
Stannis,
intent
Cersei,
on,
and the Night King.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even a lot of his followers are like, "Why? Like, I'll kill him. Like, it's not like, why don't we just do it?
Yeah.
They're like, why is this such a big deal?
Actually, you know what? That could be another major reason is that like then he'd have to like feel indebted to his followers.
Yeah, it's like a sign
which
of
is
weakness
like
to his followers type of thing almost.
Well, it's also just because like that's not the relationship he wants to have with them. Like it has to be one of subservience for him, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that actually. I love one of my favorite scenes is in like the whole entire Harry Potter series, in the films at least, is the part where Voldemort has been back, but nobody else knows or denies it. Like we know that the Order like denies it. So one of my favorite parts is when Dumbledore and Voldemort are fighting, and Harry's kind of finally like laying on the ground, and Voldemort kind of goes into him, and like how Harry stops him is with, I can't remember what he says exactly.
Well, he says that there's a big difference between Harry and him is that he has friends and he has family and he has loved ones.
And he's basically like, I feel sorry for you because you don't have any of that.
Yep, you don't feel love.
That's like one of my favorite scenes is because it's like that's what stops him.
Yeah, it's like I have all these people and you're alone. Or you always be alone.
Yeah, and that really is like the defining difference between them because, especially in that book, That was kind of something I noticed with the fourth movie too. I didn't really notice it when I read the fourth book, but in the fourth movie, they really kind of pushed the parallel. Like, just in like the few moments that they show minor characters, they give this sense that Harry is building this kind of community around him that comes into play more in book 5, where he's making like a few connections and just like little ones in a lot of cases with the other students there. And then at the end of book 4, all of Voldemort's following comes back to him. But now Harry has a following too because of everything that he's done.
Yeah.
And I think the fourth movie does a really good job of showing that, even where the book kind of doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
He's such a good villain, though.
He is,
like,
that was a really good casting choice too. I think I really.
Oh god, yes. Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back a couple of days ago and looked at. Do you guys remember the Clash of the Titans movie from like 2010? Okay.
I don't think I saw it. But
good choice. It's not very good, but he's in that too, and I noticed like he does like exactly the same voice that he does for Baltimore. I think he plays Hades too. I was like, wow, just
that's
such an uninspired casting choice.
Long hair and stuff, right?
Yeah, like you literally just had like they could have like taken the B-roll for him playing Baltimore.
You know, like his acting, the scene where it's proven that he is like one of the best actors to play Voldemort, and the last part where like Malfoy is in Hogwarts and all the Voldemort and his army comes to Hogwarts with the dead Harry, right?
Yeah.
And then Malfoy is coming towards Voldemort's side, and then he hugs him, and the way he hugs him is like,
it's so cringy.
And then he's like, "Go away, don't touch me."
Cringy,
like that was such a good scene. Like, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no like he's not even capable of showing emotion.
Oh yeah. And there was this thing that I heard when Ralph Fiennes was on stage.
Oh, is that how you say it? I always say
yeah, I mean he was on set, and then his makeup. He did all his makeup, and his makeup artist had her girl on set that day. Well, she was like 7-8 years old, and she wanted to meet this actor, right? And then she met him, and he was in all makeup and like looking like Voldemort, and he just smiled at her because he was character. It went very creepy, and she started crying. You know?
Yeah.
It's funny.
It is.
It's fun too to see like those couple points in like Ralph Fiennes' other roles where you kind of hear just like a hint of Voldemort, or like some little mannerism because like he doesn't look anything like him. Like,
he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, such a
nice
great casting choice.
Yeah. Great casting.
All right, do you guys have any other like honorable mentions you want to do? Sirius Black. Yeah. I guess we have a little bit of time. We can talk about him.
I love the way he's introduced in the third book and in the movie.
Azkaban.
Yeah, the third movie is by far my favorite movie out of all of them. It's a good one. It's like excellent filmmaking. Yeah, I really like the way he's kind of introduced as like this hardcore villain almost, and it's like kind of scary in the film. Like he's kind of crazy, but ends up being this good person.
Yeah, I mean, you would never guess, would never see it coming that he would be actually a good character, because the way they portray him throughout till he shows up is that he's this dangerous, evil man, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then he gets so close to Harry, he's like literally his godfather, I like it. I like that thing a lot.
Yeah. My favorite line from him, this didn't make it into the movies, but he says to Harry, "You're less like your father than I thought you were." I feel like there's so much that like the books have to build up to be able to like have that line in it. It's just such a testament to how complex like so many characters are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he kind of has a dark past too.
Oh yeah.
A lot of his family is on the dark side, and so it's like he's got an interesting history.
And he teaches Harry all the right lessons, Like even though whatever Harry thinks, and he always motivates him. The scene where he is in his own mansion, the black. And then
Grimmauld
Harry
Place.
is in his room, and he says the dialogue goes something like, Harry talks to him about him being evil because Harry feels that he is Voldemort partly, becoming him. So he's like, we all got good and bad inside of us. It's what we choose to be. That's who we really are, That dialogue I really liked of his.
Yeah, I don't think that's from the book either. I think that was original for the movie, which probably one of the best differences because there's a lot that the fifth movie misses with like their relationship, and that was that was a pretty good attempt at making something in very little time.
Right.
And like, yeah.
Yeah,
Really
I love that in the third movie too. Like when Harry goes into that room and he's looking at Sirius's like family tree, Harry just kind of like confides in Sirius. He's like, I feel angry. Like I'm angry all the time.
Yeah,
and Sirius is like, you're not a bad person. You're just a person that bad things have happened to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I thought that was like kind of a good life lesson. Like you're not the bad things that
I
happen
think
to
the most life lesson that Sirius gives to Harry is all in that one room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I do want to. I guess we'll have to do that next time. But Creature's another character.
Creature, yeah.
That is huge in the books, but not in the movies at all.
Is he?
He is, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because, I mean, not to, like, spoil it too much for you, but, like, he's actually kind of majorly responsible for Sirius's death, too. It's a little bit complex, the way that it plays out, but, like, in a lot of ways, he does kill Sirius.
Even Dobby.
Dobby, too, yeah. Yeah, there are just so many characters that I wish we could get to with this. We missed, like, all the professors. McGonagall, Lupin. Lupin's a boss.
Yeah, yep.
Luna. Yeah.
Tonks.
Tonks.
Is another big one in the book.
Yeah.
Fedora Tonks. I love how she does her hair. She never has to go to the parlor at all,
Yeah.
Tonks is kind of like a prodigy. Like,
Yeah.
She's another good one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many that we missed. So yeah, for both of you and also for all of our listeners, if you're like a major fan and like liked what we talked about here, definitely check out the podcast Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. I am not quite caught up with it. I think I just finished book 4. I think the hosts themselves, so they go through one chapter a week and look at, like, it's not as religious as it sounds. They like view Harry Potter like it's a sacred text, basically. I have to give them credit because a lot of like the approach that I took to making this episode, I didn't steal any concepts from them, but I definitely wouldn't have looked at the books the way that I did if I hadn't listened to it. It's really good. They do one chapter a week. I think they're on like maybe about halfway through book 6 at this point, but the episode's not quite done yet, but it's really good.
I kind of like the name of that podcast because I think Harry Potter really is a sacred text.
Oh yeah. If you
Holy Grail,
yeah, it so is. They break it down in like a lot of ways.
I think it's really interesting how I think J.K. Rowling she is a creative genius and her storytelling abilities are insane. But I think it's interesting that her writing is not the best. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, she's not that good of a writer. Like her grammar and her punctuation. Like, I guess it's more of like when you read, like a Lord of the Rings series or something like that. Like, her writing style is very amateur, and maybe that's on purpose because it's geared towards kids.
I don't think that makes.
I didn't think she was a that great of a writer.
I mean, she's not like fancy. I don't know that.
Maybe that's good.
Bad.
Yeah, fancy.
Because I mean, the thing is, like, I love like reading the Harry Potter books. Is like I can't put them down. Whereas Lord of the Rings, I have to force myself through.
Yeah,
I
guess maybe that's
purpose.
Yeah, that's purposely I put in there, I guess. But yeah, I guess I can't compare it to like other writers. But when you read other books and then kind of go to the Harry Potter series, it's like I don't know. I kind of get like this. Yeah, I guess fancy is a good word. She's not as fancy.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Additya?
It was one of the few ones where it wasn't just a story or it was just about the movie. It was like a big ass franchise, right? People were like, I don't think there was something that on that scale before that. And it was more towards kids, and because we were growing up at that point, I guess it was more special to us guys, other than our parents or anybody else after that point. Because when the movies and books were coming out, we were growing up with them. Yeah. So that was much special to us than any other generation.
Yeah. Although adults were getting into it at the same time, but I think it is more special that we got to grow up with it, as kids. Yeah. Which anyone born before I don't know 85 maybe. Actually probably 1990 wouldn't have been able to do. Yeah, it is very
we're
cool.
like the Harry Potter generation.
And thankfully like as much as I don't really enjoy the Fantastic Beasts movies, like my sister's been telling me like a lot of kids in her class are reading it, and I am just so glad that that's still happening.
Yeah, that's good.
That kids are still reading these books, even since it sparked a whole generation to like start reading again, and has so many imitators and like
Right.
I mean, I wasn't alive before they came out, but like I've heard that it like totally like reformed the entire like literary industry.
Oh yeah.
It's refreshing to see that like nothing quite has beat the original yet.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, there's no competition there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's gonna be. I think it'll always be a story that resonates with people, and that's why I don't think it'll ever go away.
Yeah. To
I think
pivot
it's
on
always gonna
that,
be read.
always.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, just some other quick boilerplate things. We're now distributing through Anchor instead of Libsyn. Shouldn't be much of a change for most people, but you will have to switch your Spotify subscription. If you do listen through Spotify, you won't get the new ones if you're still subscribed to the old one. I'm going to try to rectify it, but so far, no luck. If you have comments or requests for future episodes, send them into erw58@drexel.edu. Make sure to like us on Facebook and leave reviews on iTunes. And for upcoming episodes, we'll be doing Shrek and Casino Royale as a continuation of like our look at 3-act structure. There's not going to be too much about it in there, but it is kind of on that same topic. Oh, also, if you want, this week, Hunter is in Ford versus Ferrari, which is coming out as the... I figured you wouldn't plug yourself for that, so I'll do it for you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, as the Ferrari crew pit leader, we still don't know if your line's going to make it in.
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
Yeah, and we missed the premiere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bummer.
That's okay. I mean, we can go to the first show as well.
Yeah, it comes out the 15th. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely look for him in that. That is your character's name, right? Ferrari crew pit leader?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Come and support also because it just looks like it's going to be really good.
Yeah, awesome. It's a good movie.
So, yeah, we'll see you next episode.